Is it not a blessing to see our kids up here? I mean, from meeting you at the front door, Miss Melody up there, it doesn't get any sweeter than that right there. If you didn't come through them front doors, you missed a blessing, because I promise you, these side doors were great too, but Miss Melody up there on the front, she was so eager to do work for the Lord this morning. And you can't change that, okay? She'll be on fire for the Lord the rest of her life. You can see it in her as a kid. Our kids are begging to help, and they're doing everything they can to help. They're getting up here and singing, and I can promise you, there's very few of you that will get up here in front of all you people and sing and preach and talk and do announcements and everything like that. We need to praise our kids for doing that, because they're the next generation. They're the ones that are going to take the church to the next level. Okay? We get to see them. They're learning verses, so that when they're in school and everything's turning against them, they can recite verses. We had our youth rally here last night. We had 150 in total. There was 100 kids from Cleburne County that decided on a Saturday night to come to church. Okay? And I want to thank all of our volunteers that helped last night and that have helped today. We couldn't do this without you. Okay? Today is to put our youth under the spotlight and on a pedestal, but there's you that are holding them up. Okay? You're the one that's holding the light so that they can have a spotlight on them, and we thank you for that. Okay? As the spokesperson for the youth, I want to extend a thank you for what you do for our youth, how you lift them up. Thank you for that. So our verse today is 1 Timothy 4:12, if you want to go ahead and turn there. I'm going to kind of give a little backstory about why this is the verse. My lovely wife made me a shirt last night, and it's got our verse on it, 1 Timothy 4:12. Our youth chose this as their verse. If you notice, we have a little different logo. We were up in the youth room playing one night, and we were drawing brands, like cattle brands and stuff. And so I said, you know what? I said, we ought to come up with a brand for the youth. So our youth got together, and they chose this brand, and then they chose the verse, 1 Timothy 4:12. We know that some of us as youth, we use that to try to get a seat at the table, right? Let no one despise you for your youth. We all know that. We all know that portion of the verse, and we want a seat at the table. I remember when I was growing up at my grandma and grandpa's, that it was the most greatest feeling in the world when you finally got to sit at the men's table. All the boys had to sit in the living room, or the kids had to sit in the living room and everything. And I remember I'd reached the age where I wasn't at the table, but I was sitting on the outsides of the table. I was listening. I was hearing. I wanted to be part of the conversation. And we as youth and young adults, and we use this verse, let no one despise you for your youth, to get a seat at the table. But this verse means way more than that. This verse means, are you the example? Okay? It applies to young, middle, and old. I'm not putting numbers on that because I don't want nobody to hurt me. All right? You fall wherever you think you fall. So we know the let no one despise you for your youth. Great. The second half of the verse is what we're looking at today. But be an example to the believers in word, in conduct, in love, in spirit, in faith, and in purity. And that's what we're looking at today. Some verses some versions are going to leave out spirit, but we're going to touch on spirit today. Okay? We want to lead by example. Okay? We started a new program in our youth. It's called the Teen Lead Program. Okay? As you have seen in the news and the world and everything that goes on, our teenagers need to be leaders in the schools, in their jobs, on the playground, or wherever y'all go to hang out nowadays. Walmart parking lot. I don't know, that's where we hung out. Sonic. We need leaders, right? Because The world is pulling all of our youth away from here. Okay? That's why 100 here last night, that's a blessing that 100 of our teenagers chose here. They didn't choose to go out and do whatever. They chose to be here. We had an excellent message. We had an excellent band. They chose worship over going and do what is fun. So that's what we're going to look at. Are they the example? Are you the example? Okay? So as we go through these 6 pieces, I want you to question your life. Am I following that? Do I need to change this? Okay, so we look at the very first one. Speech. Okay? When we think of speech, we think of the words that come out of our mouth. Right? Cussing. I've done a lesson on this before, and everybody goes to cussing. All right? That's a portion of it. Okay? You got to have a clean mouth. But what words are you saying? How are you using the words that come out of your mouth? Okay? The next thing that we're going to look up is conduct or conversation. Okay? Had to go to Brother Bob on that one, and I'll explain that in just a second. But we'll get to kind of the words. But the speech is how you speak, what you say. Okay? We've got a verse for that. James 3, 2 through 3. And it says, "For we all stumble in many ways. If anyone does not stumble in word, he is a perfect man, able also to bridle the whole body." Verse 3, "Indeed, we put bits in horses' mouths, and that they may obey us, and we turn their whole bodies." I felt fitting that that's at a cowboy church to use that verse for our speech. If anybody's ever ridden a horse, you know how important the headgear is. Whether you're riding a hack or you're riding a bit, you know that without that, you don't nearly have as much control. Now, there's some horses out there that you can ride with just a halter, you can ride with no headstall on, and that's great. Until something may bite them, until something spooks them, and they lose control. I've got a horse. Brother Jimmy can't say nothing, so I'm going to say it's my horse. This horse come from Brother Jimmy to Marina and then to me. And she sat for quite some time because she got injured. We took her to one trainer. He called me. He said, "Hey, look, you're going to have to come pick this horse up." He said, "Look, this ain't going to work out. Your best bet's take her to the sale." I was like, "Bro, that's my horse. I like this thing. I don't want to sell this horse." I said, "Okay." So I called Ray Cooper. If any of y'all know Ray Cooper, he's an excellent horse trainer. And I said, "Ray," I said, "I've got a problem." I said, "When this horse was 3 years old and was rode out of your stall to get on into the trailer to go home, your guy rode her bareback. And now they say she can't be rode." I said, "Something's not right here." So he agreed to take me in on a 2-week tune-up. I may or may not have had a lapse in judgment. Marina wasn't home to tell me no. But I decided I was going to try to figure out what was wrong with this horse. So I'm going to ride this horse. Okay, so I put my saddle on. Everything was going great. Threw my leg over. That was the beginning. About 3 jumps later, when I come off the side and hit my head on a fence post, I realized how important the bit was. After 2 weeks with Ray Cooper, she understood what the bit meant again. And I can control her whole body now. I can tell her to go right, she goes right. I tell her to go left, she goes left. Before she understood what that bit meant in her mouth, she did whatever she wanted to. I was sitting there. I had the headstall on. I had the bit in her mouth. But I had no control. Okay, some of us as Christians, we think we've got the bit in our mouth. But we're not listening to the guy in the saddle telling you what to do. We've got the bit in our mouth and we're running. Okay? If you can't control your mouth, verse 1, James 3 verse 1 says, "Not many should become teachers, my brothers, because you know that you will receive a stricter punishment." If you don't let God control that bit, what good are you? He can't use you if your speech isn't for Him. So think about that in your lives. Is your speech following what God has asked you to do? The next thing that Paul tells Timothy that you must do is your conduct or conversation. Okay? I went to Brother Bob and I was like, hey, look, I got a question here. I was like, how does conversation and conduct go together? I was like, because this don't make sense. Translations. Okay? We come through the translations. And we're talking about a conversation back in the old day was your conduct, correct? Was kind of how you acted. So, how do you act? Do you act in a way that is an example for others to follow? Are you the person that people want to be like? Okay, it's real easy in life to go with the flow, right? We love to go with the flow. We don't want to be the guy that, hey guys, we really shouldn't be that guy, because we've all been that guy or seen that guy, the guy that says, hey, we don't need to go do this. And everybody turns and says, why you got to be like that? Well, what you're doing is your conduct. What you're doing is how your example needs to be. If you're the guy that's leading the pack going out on Friday and Saturday night, your conduct's not very well. I said earlier that your speech falls into your conversation, into your conduct, and it does. If you're the person that's gossiping all the time, if you're the person that we see going in a little huddle over here and they're talking about so-and-so, and did you see what they wore the other day? Can you believe that they bought a new truck? Where did they get that money? You laugh because we're all thinking of somebody, right? Nobody say no names, all right? We don't want to hurt no feelings. We all know somebody. What your speech falls into your conduct because it's how you use that, what you're doing with that. My notes, I've got, don't give them the rope. Your conduct. Guys, Christians are being looked at under the microscope. We're being watched. Your conduct is part of that. You want to give the world the rope? It's in your conduct, how you act. Don't give them the rope to hang you with. Okay? Look at our lives and make sure that we're following what God has got for us. 1 Peter 2:12 says, having your conduct honorable among the Gentiles, that when they speak against you as evildoers, they may, by your good works, which they observe, glorify God in the day of visitation. Nothing's changed here, guys. Same thing from 100 years ago, 1,000 years ago. People are watching us. People are watching what we do to justify what they do. Guys, if the Christian's not living the Christian life, why should the non-believer try to be a Christian? You can't change non-believers when you're over there doing non-believer things. They have to see you doing Christian things to become a Christian. Look at your life. Are you doing Christian acts? Is your conduct Christian? Our third one that we look at is our love. How do we treat each other? The love here, we heard Brother Bob talk about the different types of love last week. The love that we see here is the agape love, a pure, willful, sacrificial love that intentionally desires another's highest good. Okay, that's the love Paul is telling Timothy here. Our verse for that is John 13:34. A new commandment I give to you, that you love one another as I have loved you, that you also love one another. You see how each one of these is kind of rolling into the next? Because when we're over here in our huddle and we're talking about that person over there, we're not showing love. When we exclude somebody because we don't like them, we're not showing love. When we tell people, you know, you really shouldn't come here, we're not showing love. Guys, we all know what love is. We all know that hug from your loved one what that is? Guys, it's this morning I feel love from all around. I've had every one of our pastors come up to me and say, I've been praying for you this morning. I've had some of y'all come up here and say, I've been praying for you this morning. My family drove 2 hours, hour and a half up here this morning. Love. We all know love. I've not been blessed with a child of my own, but I have our youth group as my children. And I don't know that love of holding your baby for the first time. But I do know what it's like when the kids call Marina mom and me dad, that love you have for them. Are you showing that to everyone? Are you showing the love that you show your family to everyone? Because you should be. You should love everybody that you come in contact with. Guys, there's people that get on our nerves. There's people that you see in Walmart and you walk the other direction. Guilty. Sometimes it's because I'm in a hurry and I know if I go over there, I'll be there for 5 hours. But we know that there's people out there that we just like, You need to show them love. Amen. That's the example. To show them love. Okay? Some of our translations will have the word spirit in there. I've already gotten permission from my stepdad because I'm going to use him as my spirit. All right? Example and spirit refers to our character or attitude towards the things of God. Be a model to them. React as Jesus would react. The reason I want to use my stepdad for that is I know there's a bunch of hog fans in here. Yeah. My stepdad may be better or a little bit more of a hog fan than you all are. I don't know. I'm just saying. I can ask Mr. D any Razorback question about something that's happened on the football field, the basketball court, anything like that, and he'll know the answer. He loves the Razorbacks. He even got a Razorback tattooed on his leg, all right? All right, now that's school spirit. We're talking school spirit here. How many of you have already cleared your calendars for Saturday from now until playoffs because you know, that's right, because you know whatever time the Hogs are on or whatever time your team's on, you're going to be there. How many of you have cleared your Sunday calendar so you'll be at church? Oh, hold on. That's right. And I appreciate you that have. But how many of you have the spirit that you just jump for joy when something in church happens? One of these little boys or girls comes down and gives their life to Christ. You're so excited. You're like the cheerleader on the side of you just can't stand it. That's the spirit we're looking for. That's the spirit we're after. We want you. How many of you wear a Razorback shirt or whatever team you're? I think you're Louisiana, aren't you, Bo? Yeah, we won't talk about that. Y'all just ignore him. How many of you wear your school shirt at least once a week? Whether it be your high school, whether it be your college team, whatever. You rep them. Yeah. How many of you rep your church once a week? We appreciate that. Because you're on fire for the Lord. Your spirit is there to honor and glorify God. That's what Paul's saying here. Is your spirit, are you focusing on sports as hard or harder as hard as you're focusing on the church? Because it needs to be harder. You need to focus on church harder than you focus on anything else. You need to support the church harder than you support anything else. Because you remember when we talked about love? How can you show support if you're not loving your church? Okay? I want to make a little side note here. I think this building's 80 foot wide by like 250 feet long. This is a building. You are the church. So when I say love the church, that's right. When I say love the church, that's loving you. When I say have spirit, excitement for the church, that's our brothers and sisters. Okay, you rep the shirt that says Mountaintop Cowboy Church because you're representing the church. But you're not representing the building, you're representing us. That's where you need to have your spirit. That's where you need to be looking at. Faith. How strong is your faith? We have faith over here. We love faith so much we put it in red where nobody misses it. Put it on big sign. Faith is a key building block in God's kingdom because we are saved and considered righteous by having faith in Christ Jesus. To walk in faith means to take God at His word and not to rely on ourselves. Has anybody ever heard the walk by faith and not by sight? We live in a world where if we can't get it on our cell phone and Google it, we don't believe it ever happened. And even then, you probably only should believe about half of it, if that. Faith. So when Paul's talking to Timothy here and he says, you need to have faith. How strong are the things we've talked about? How strong are you behind that? How strong do you believe that Jesus Christ died on that cross? Okay? We're the only religion. We have no bones. We have nothing. We can't touch, grab. You have faith. You have to have faith in Jesus Christ. How strong is your faith? Because if your faith isn't strong, how can you be the example to the rest of the world? How can you share the Word of God if your faith isn't strong? So look at that. Is your faith strong enough that when you're out about in your life, you're protruding that to everybody that sees you? Kind of like in your conduct, see? Wrapping all this here together. Your faith is strong for the Lord. You share the Word of God everywhere you go when your faith is strong for the Lord. Purity. Are you the Christian you claim to be? Matthew 5:8 says, blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. Be an example. Have a pure mind, a pure heart, pure conversation. Each one of these is all referring back to the same thing. When we discussed this verse, I said, you have to understand something. For let no one despise you for your youth. You're wanting that seat at the table. But if you can't do these 6 things, you don't deserve a seat at the table. Paul's writing to Timothy here. Timothy is leading the church here. He is a leader. He's somebody people are looking to. He's somebody that people are listening to. If you can't do these 5 or 6 things, Timothy, no one's going to listen to you. I think about this conversation, or this letter that Paul has sent to Timothy as more of a conversation between a grandpa and a grandson. When I was growing up, my grandpa, I stayed with my grandparents, and when out in the shop every morning, there's about 7 or 8 men drinking coffee. And that's where all the world problems were solved. Okay? And I was not old enough. They say I wasn't old enough. I think my grandma was scared to give me coffee. Just saying, I think it might have been bad. I don't know. They say, it hypes me up or something. I don't know. But I remember getting my strawberry milk. And was it bacon I'd always take? I think I had a little Ninja Turtle bowl. As long as you laugh at me all you want to, I love that bowl and I love that strawberry milk. And I'd go out there amongst all these men that knew way more than I ever would know about life. And I imagine this conversation with Paul and Timothy like this, is you're sitting there and Grandpa's kind of sitting in his rocking chair and he's whittling on something, and he said, son, he said, you may be young, but that don't mean you can't speak. That don't mean you can't be heard. That don't mean you don't have something to offer. But son, if you don't watch what you say, ain't nobody going to listen to you. Son, if you don't watch what you do, ain't nobody going to listen to you. Son, if you go around and you ain't loving on people, ain't nobody going to listen to you. Son, if you ain't got the faith, ain't nobody going to listen to you. If you're not pure, if you're not on fire for the Lord, ain't nobody going to listen to you, son. Son, if you want to learn something from me right here, this is what you got to do. You got to watch what you say. You got to watch what you do. Show love in everything that you do. Make sure when somebody's watching, there's nothing for them to question. Make sure that you never doubt. People listen to you then, son. I imagine that conversation about like that. And it kind of brings it into a real perspective of what we're supposed to be doing as Christians here. We're supposed to be doing just that. The world needs to listen to us. The world needs to hear us. But the world's finding every excuse not to hear us, not to listen to us, not to see us. The question is, are you the example for other Christians to follow so that we can be heard? We can be seen? Sunday mornings, especially this morning, we come up here and the youth are up here. They're at the door. They're all around the church. Last night, their sanctuary full of us. It's easy to be seen and be heard because you're right here. Here's great, all right? This is safe space. We get to be, there's not a single person that doesn't want to be a Christian in here, okay? Otherwise, you wouldn't be here. Out there is where you have to be the example. Out there is where you're under the microscope. Out there is where being an example changes lives. Pretty, if you want to come on up. See, I'm kind of new to this, obviously, because I was like kind of wrapping up, and then I realized I didn't have the musician behind me, so I was like, I don't really know how this is supposed to go down. You know, hey, we're learning together, right? Hey, you know, it's kind of like when you get a seat at the table, okay? And you spill your drink, or you knock your plate off. You just stepped up to the big kid table, to the adult table, and you knocked your drink off. Look, you clean up your plate and you get right back up and you sit down and you go back to eating again. It's going to happen just like that. Sometimes today you're going to look, I hope you're looking at your lives and you say, man, I've messed up. I'm not the example I need to be. Guess what? Every one of us falls into that category. There ain't a single person in here that's a perfect example. There's not a single person in here that doesn't fail at least once a day. We know that. I mean, I fail every chance I get. I don't understand. It's just a problem I got. But the fact of the matter is, God's a forgiving God. We know that we're going to fail. We're going to fall. We're going to get back up. You're going to spill your drink at the table with all the men. And you're going to go, my bad. Whether you're a kid, whether you're old, you have just as much right to speak. You have just as much right to be a part of God, be a part of the church. When our youth, on the back of our shirts, it says we are the church of today. Because in the fact of the matter is our youth is what's growing this church. It's what's reaching the schools. Our government shut us down. We're not in the schools. We can't be there. Our teachers, we thank you because you have the opportunity to do that. Because we can't. Our kids get the opportunity, though. Our kids get to be the example. Some of you in here say, well, I don't need to watch the kids as they're not an example for me. Life lessons come from all ages. My grandpa's 80 years old. He's changed more tires in his life than I can probably even count. We was changing a tire the other day, and I said, whoa, stop. I said, that's a different tire than a lug nut on there. I said, if you don't it, you'll mess that lug nut up. He looks at me kind of funny like, son, I've changed more tires in my life than you can count. Why are you trying to tell me something to do? And I explained it to him. A 26-year-old explained something to an 80-year-old man that knows more about life and changing tires than I do. But I brought something to the table. Our youth have shown you this morning that they have just as much to bring to the table. Church camp last night, there's always one thing that I can count on. When our kids come down here to the altar, whether it be 1 or 2 or whatever needs to come down here, there's 10 or 15 more right behind them. They surround that one so that they can pray over them. That's an example to live by. Amen. Some of you are sitting there saying, oh, I can't walk down that aisle. You walked in here. If you have a problem walking, we got 4 wheelchairs. We'll roll you down here. This is the time that you look at your life and you say, I'm not the example I need to be. Let me get there. If you need to come down here to the altar and you need to say, God, I'm going to lay this here. I'm going to let my old example be here. When I get up, I'm going to be the new example. Guess what? Every Saturday night, Sunday morning, before y'all get here, we vacuum these stairs. We wipe this thing down over here. And all that you left here, that old self, it'll be gone before you come back. Take this time. Look at your life. What doesn't look to be the great example, change to be the example. Follow what we need to be as Christians.